Good afternoon, everybody. We are now to the afternoon session, starting now with starting with the role of the creative economy in nation building. We have with us Mr. Ajit Mohan, Vice President and Managing Director of Facebook India, in conversation with Mr. Amitabh Kant, the Chief Executive Officer of NITI Aayog. Mr. Ajit, the platform is all yours.
Thank you. Welcome to Mr. Amitabh Kant. He clearly needs no introduction. He has served at the state and at the government of India for a long period, and he's now the CEO of NITI Aayog, and probably one of the most insightful voices on some of the big changes happening in the world, with a particular focus on technology and digital in India. Mr. Kant, welcome.
Thank you, Ajit. Great pleasure being with you.
Same here, Mr. Kant. We were together in a public forum almost a year ago in March of 2019 in Bangalore on the back of a session on AI. The world looks quite different just in the last 16 months, Mr. Kant. A lot more turbulence. The geopolitics seem to have shifted a fair bit. And of course, the last few months have been characterized by a severe virus outbreak. I'm curious, as someone who is leading the agenda of innovation in this government, how do you look at the changes? As much as there's been a negative shock on multiple fronts, are you optimistic about the opportunity for India coming from all the changes that have happened?
Yeah. So Ajit, a lot has happened since then. Since the last time we met about a year back, and I think a lot has happened for India and a lot has changed for Facebook as far as India is concerned as well. The good thing is that we are in the midst of one of the biggest disruptions that is taking place. And it's important to understand that this COVID, while it has brought in a new normal, it's very important to understand that in this new normal, the key will be about innovation. The people who will survive will be those who are going to work with technology, people who are going to work on sunrise sectors of growth, and people who are going to work with data and use artificial intelligence to drive growth. And my belief always has been that India quite often gets into sunset areas of industries, and then it becomes very difficult to penetrate global markets and get the size and scale. And therefore, it's very, very important that India gets into new areas of growth, and these are areas where there will be huge disruption, whether it be mobility. I think electric mobility is going to see a huge disruption because of new technologies. You've seen the share price of Tesla go beyond that of Toyota in such a short period. So you will see new technologies of lithium ion, you will see new technologies of hydrogen. All this drive completely huge amount of innovation. Secondly, in my view, in India, we are seeing data at very low price points, and we are throwing up an enormous amount of data. And this data, because we have the advantage of having brought in biometrics, and therefore we are using biometrics across digital payments, across a vast range of areas. And therefore, India's usage of data will be enormous. And I think it's very important that we move from the scale of data to becoming data intelligent in years to come. And this would require us really to leapfrog in the world of artificial intelligence. That will really be the key. And the third is, my view is that in a lot of areas like huge pendency in civil courts, huge pendency on land matters, etc., we need to use blockchain and get into real-time monitoring of many of these issues, and therefore blockchain technology will be the key. And fourthly, I am a great believer that in the days to come, India needs to totally liberalize on clinical trials and get into high value added production of pharma. We are already a major player in pharma, but we do most of this in generic products. We need to get into high value added products. And therefore, and I'm saying this because genomics will play a very key role in the years to come. So these are some of the areas where India must technologically leapfrog. That is critical. And this is critical for India's long-term ability to grow at high rates of growth on a consistent basis over a long period of time. But one of the good things that's happened is, as a consequence of Atmanirbhar Bharat program, the government has brought in radical reforms. It's brought in reforms in terms of the definition of MSMEs, has brought in reforms which are long pending in the agriculture sector. It's done away with the Agriculture Produce Marketing Control Order, the Essential Commodities Act. It's allowed land, contract farming, and this will bring in size and scale in agriculture. And it's also opened up the coal and the mining sector. All these sectors were dying out for reforms. And I think lastly, the states have acted on reforms as far as the labor sector is concerned. And therefore, we've seen India in the midst of major reforms, and these will give you growth over a long period of time.
You covered such a massive spectrum from AI, blockchain to mobility. If for a second, Mr. Kant, if I look back and on the government of India's mission of Digital India, it's remarkable how much has changed in 5 years. The number of people who have access to affordable mobile broadband, and that number continues to go up. Some of the fundamental foundation platforms that have been built, UPI for payments, identity, as you mentioned in Aadhaar. I'm not sure, to some extent whether all of us as stakeholders, we've actually looked back at the pace of the transformation in a short period of time. But equally, I think the question then is, if so many of these foundations are in place, the question for you, Mr. Kant, is the agenda that you're setting, that you just described. How do you think all of the stakeholders can move that needle from recognizing that the foundation has been built and now aggressively chasing the innovation agenda across sectors? Has that movement happened? Is it mindset shift? Is it a nudge from different stakeholders? How are you thinking about it?
So Ajit, actually, when I was a young officer, I used to work in Kerala, and I was working in the fisheries sector. And it used to take me 10 months, 11 months to open a bank account for a fisherman. Today, you can walk into a bank and open a bank account in less than a minute using your biometric. And, I haven't used my debit credit card for a long time. You make all payments using UPI or PhonePe or Paytm, one of these. And what has happened as a or move forward. I mean, just see that in the income tax department, 97.8% of the tax returns are filed online. I mean, all this is online. This doesn't happen anywhere in the country. Look at GST. GST is totally cashless, paperless. It's all digital. Or look at the new Ayushman Bharat scheme, which covers 500 million Indians. It is the biggest health insurance scheme in the world. It is totally paperless and totally digital. You can be from Bihar working in Tamil Nadu. You will carry your health insurance with you. So what does all this imply? All our transactions in government are digital. Nothing is paper-led. It's all government, digital movement in government. And therefore, what is happening is that we are throwing up huge amount of data, and this is leading to a huge amount of innovation. So you look at the large number of startups which are doing some phenomenal work in different areas. I'll just give you the example of PhonePe, which has done some great work on digital transactions. I'll give you the example of Map My India, which has done some great work on just different kind of maps, all digital across India, which can be used by all departments, all private sector. It's amazing. You look at a company like Zerodha, which does helps you on a digital cashless basis through paperless for stock markets. And you have look at a company like Cure AI, which uses artificial intelligence to do a lot of it has helped the Mumbai municipal corporations through X-rays, which give you this insight into COVID-19. So you are seeing a huge amount of innovation across India. And one of the things we did during COVID-19 was to come out with the new telemedicine guideline. And therefore, my view is that this face-to-face consultations will go in years to come. You'll have all digital consultations. You'll take a photograph, send it to your doctor. It'll be all digital. So we are in the midst of some of the biggest transformation that is going to take place. And therefore, the Prime Minister has given this challenge about creating new apps in India, and everybody must build, everybody must code, and take this as a challenge to create some of the greatest apps in different areas for India.
Listening to you, Mr. Kant, one of the questions in my mind is, the government has enabled the creation of multiple platforms. Now, in a lot of these forums, the conversation invariably is, what more can the government do? I have a different question for you. Do you think the private sector has done enough to leverage the foundations that have been built?
No. I think it has to be a collaborative partnership. And one of the things we did, for instance, and when COVID-19 broke out, we in NITI Aayog actually developed Aayog Setu app, and this was not done by the government. This was actually done in partnership with private sector. We got about 35 engineers from Make My Trip. We had one MG with us. Some of the best young entrepreneurs, their engineers worked with us to code and build up Aayog Setu. And look at it. It was the fastest app in the world to get 50 million downloads. And today it is close to about 140 million downloads. And it has greatly helped all states in contact tracing. It has helped us, it's given us foresight into where the next virus impact will be, locality by locality. And therefore, this was all done by them. And then on telemedicine, we have Swast, which has been built by the private sector. And similarly, we are working with private sector to build super apps in education, in health, in agriculture. And our objective will be that the business model should be private sector. We should help them to bring the size and scale. The backing of the government will give them the size and scale to both get the domestic reach as well as penetrate global markets.
On that spirit, I think the collaboration that you spoke about, and it's pretty clear, Mr. Kant, that building up capacity and tech capacity is quite critical to the national agenda. And as you mentioned, not just building for India, but building for the world as well. I'm curious about, when you think about the current context, is capital a constraint anymore? And do we think in the spirit of Atmanirbhar, do you think of what are the mechanisms in which we can build collaborations between the private sector and the government, as well as openness to technical know-how and capital from outside the world, that there is a way to connect the dots that still serves the national agenda? How are you thinking about that?
So, Ajit, it's very important to say that Atmanirbhar Bharat is not about isolation. It is not about anti-globalization. It's about getting the best from the world. It's about creating world-class product. It's not about protectionism. It's about ability of Indian companies to create world-class products, capture the Indian market, and then use the strength of the domestic market to penetrate global market. It's about being a global champion and bringing in that skill of excellence and bringing the mindset to be absolutely excellence for global markets. And this is really the key for India.
Thank you for that. I think, and I've heard this conversation and the clarification from multiple senior folks like you, that we are really doubling up on the interconnectedness to the world. I do want to switch gears a bit on this, particularly for FICCI, the context of the creative economy, Mr. Kant. And two questions really. I think we've always talked about the role of soft power for any country, and India, first with the movie industry, with broadcasters like Star and Z. After that, we've always believed in the soft power. I'm curious about the role of the creative economy that you see, where we've always talked about the demographic dividend, but we haven't spent enough attention on the democratic dividend. The fact that we are an open democracy that can fuel and accelerate creative economies that can have a global play. Do you see this is the moment for India to leverage our democratic dividend?
Yeah. I'm a great believer in India emerging as a very major hub of creative economy, and I'm a great believer that with a young population standing at over 500 million, India is one of the largest markets for companies operating across creative industry, and my belief is that the media and entertainment industry particularly, which is a very critical player of the creative industry in India, is really on a fast track to growth. It's poised to cross almost about 34 billion by 2021. And, as per a recent study, and India's creative goods exports have actually doubled in the last 4 or 5 years. And my personal view is that India will become a center for outsourcing work, such as game development, game support services. In the coming years, the country will become a hub for development, for porting, dubbing of various games, skilled software experts. We'll match with world-class development expertise. And, it's also important that we make more movies than any other country in the world. We make 14 million Indians go to the movies on a daily basis, and to see a film. And the Bollywood itself produces over 800 films each year. That is more than double the number of feature films produced in the United States. And so my view is that a lot of this viewing with COVID-19, as we've seen, switched over to Hotstar, Netflix, etc. We are also the world's second largest market for YouTube music videos, which is close to about 100 million individual viewers per month. And so we'll see a huge amount of creative workers have been, all these creative workers will have massive amount of new jobs getting created. And I would add to this is, irrespective of the destruction that has happened, Indian gastronomy will bounce back. And, we'll see a lot of creativity in our food and cuisine sectors in the years to come. That will also be a major driver of India's growth. So I personally envisage India emerging as a very key driver of the creative industry in the years to come.
And I want to build on that. I think you framed it, 30 plus billion in a couple of years, I think 100 billion by 2030. There's clearly a clear economic contribution from a GDP and employment point of view. I'm curious, Mr. Kant, industries like agriculture, manufacturing, it's easier to focus on it because it's tangible. Whereas the creative industry, it's a soft good. Sometimes you can't touch it. You can feel it. Do you see a need for a different posture, either from a government point of view or even from, in the spirit of what you said earlier, the collaboration between the government and the private sector? How do we look at the creative economy in a way that really allows us to build the foundations that can fuel other sectors? Because that's classically the role that media has played. You build mass vehicles and all sectors benefit from it. Do you see that because it is not tangible, we may not be giving the structures of a classic industry to it and not enough accelerators for it?
Yeah. So, Ajit, in a country's growth, its branding is very critical, and branding envisages both the hard power, which is manufacturing, agriculture, and so on, and also the soft power of it. And according to me, soft power creates more value over a period of time, and therefore, the future of creative industry is really driving the soft power of India. It's very critical because technological innovation, automation, and AI, they're all about actually the soft power of India. They will produce exponential change. They will actually drive growth, and they will actually transform the digital transformation as it gathers momentum in India will really transform in India. And I think you will see a huge amount of brand value being added to India through the soft power of India, which will come through the creative industry. And, this will be a very fast moving environment, actually. And therefore, providing intellectual property rights, which we've done, trade rights, copyrights, all these are very critical in this creative industry area. And from the creative economy viewpoint, I think also we need to realize that you will have many, because digitally India will grow and expand, and that will really drive the creative economy in many ways. And there will be a huge amount of focus on infrastructure. There will be a huge amount of focus on access, and data will remain a key challenge for India, both as far as creative industry is concerned and as far as e-commerce is concerned. But both these areas will be critical for India's growth in the years to come, because they'll be major job creators for India. And there's huge amount of very talented manpower in India. The kind of talent we have on the creative industry side, I don't think any country has. And I can tell you, I've interacted with people from across the world. India's talent in the creative industry is just phenomenal.
I want to build off that, Mr. Kant, in terms of human capacity. One of the things that is very obvious, it's true in Facebook, around the world, is the hardest resource at the moment around the world seems to be engineering talent, and obviously we have a huge benefit from having a deep bench there. You talked about building capacity in AI, blockchain. In a lot of ways, it finally seems to come down to our ability to continue to nurture engineering talent and product managers and designer talent. How are you thinking about it? Do you feel like there are enough levers to really accelerate the building up of skills and engineering capacity in the country? And what is the role that the private sector needs to play that it may not be playing now?
So we actually produce 4 times the number of STEM graduates as compared to the United States of America. But most of these STEM graduates, quite substantial number of them, go through an academic course, and therefore our academic institutions across technology should all actually be becoming product development institutions. They should be teaching engineering and asking all the young students in all the engineering colleges only to create products of the future. And I'm saying this because India has all the challenges of the world. The Silicon Valley may be the most innovative place in the world, but it has no challenges. I mean, there are no challenges of water scarcity. There's no challenge of food scarcity. There's no challenge of, bad air. There's no challenge of pollution. There's no challenge of garbage. And therefore, we need to create top-class products by where we can leverage technology to really leapfrog. And this is, if India is able to find solutions using technology for all its challenges, we will actually find a solution not for the 1.4 billion people of India, but for the 7.5 billion people of the world who will be moving from poverty to middle class in the next 5 to 6 years. And therefore, we really need to prepare our engineering institutions and our management institutions, which are there in large numbers, need to really prepare for the future of work. And the future of work, according to me, is product development and product development. क्या वो? Hello. No, so I just wanted to say that we need to really prepare for the future of work by focusing on soft skill as well as very, very strong cognitive, adaptive, and creative skills development. This calls for a move from science, technology, engineering, math, STEM to STEAM, which is also includes both STEM as well as arts, training, and all that we need to combine. So my view is that I'm a great believer that STEAM education, which also includes arts training and creative industry, is critical. So the future of creative economy is very critical. It's a sector which is going to grow and expand. The media and entertainment sector is a highly digital and information driven economy. Will be the key. The media and entertainment sector will be one of the key drivers of India's growth. It presents massive opportunity across the entire gamut of industry, including the range of media and entertainment like films, broadcast, TV and radio, print media, digital entertainment, animation, gaming, visual effects, and all these. And these are areas which are all sunrise areas where India can become a global champion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kant, for that. I have one question before we wrap up. Given there's been so much gloom and doom, Mr. Kant, over the last few months, I want to end on an optimistic note and get a sense from you in terms of what the next 6, 12, 18 months look for India and our response to the outbreak, the economy coming back, as well as the acceleration of technology.
So, Ajit, I'm a great believer in optimism, and I'm a great believer that India will bounce back. We are already seeing green shoots in the economy. We are seeing that key sectors like FMCG, etc., have already come back. I'm extremely hopeful that we will bounce back, and we'll bounce back with a vengeance. And all of us need to be very clear that this was a massive challenge for the pandemic, was a massive challenge for not merely for India, but for the whole world, including countries which have been impacted in a very big way, like the United States of America, the European countries. But the challenge is that every crisis is also an opportunity. And therefore, this crisis also is going to have losers and winners. India can decide whether it wants to lose or whether it wants to win. And my great belief is that Indians must pick up areas of growth which are going to emerge as winners for tomorrow. And I've listed them out as areas where data will be key, artificial intelligence will be the key, genomics will be the key, mobility will be the key, drones will be the key. And these are areas. Creative industry will be a very key driver of growth. Media and entertainment will be a very key driver of growth. These are areas where India must select as the sectors which are going to lead India. We must identify 12 to 13 sectors where India must become a global champion and really drive vigorously with full energy the growth in those areas. And those are sectors which are going to take India to sustain growth over the next 10 to 12 years and create vast number of jobs as well.
On that note, thank you, Mr. Amitabh Kant. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.